Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the ImeckSports.com pregame show here on My Connection. I'm Joe Cullen, along with Harry Nostrand from CarolinaVarsity.com. Harry, another great week of IMEC conference play.
Yeah, it was a fun week. You know, there was some good games in there, some surprises, and like I said, good week of conference play.
Always is. We're here at Mooresville High School, where this week's My Connection game will be played on Friday night. It's Tuesday afternoon right now, bright and sunny out here, 75 degrees, but Harry, that's not the prediction for Friday night's weather forecast.
Now, I got a feeling it's going to be a little cold, a little wet maybe, too, so could be in for a good battle, especially because it's a big game in the IMEC conference.
Oh, it's a huge game. Fortunately, they got to play turf here at Mooresville, so it might be wet and slick, but it won't be too muddy. So they'll be able to play as long as there's no lightning. But 50 degrees and cold may not be a great thing for the Blue Devils, and they're holding on to the football.
Well, let's just hope they continue what they've done these past two games. No turnovers for the starters, and if they can keep that going, I like their chances.
Well, we'll talk about the game a little bit more here later. Today, we also have a special guest that's going to join us after the break, after we go through last week's game. Dale Ross from Carolina Varsity will be here. Dale, pretty good at setting up the forecast for the playoffs. We're going to let Harry and Dale walk you through the potentials of where the IMEC conference should fall out, what teams will go 4A, 4AA, who they may play, so on and so forth. So we'll let them do that after the break. But right now, let's get started with last week's matchups, starting with Mallard Creek at West Charlotte.
42-0, Mallard Creek wins. Not a shocker there, but I will say this. One little tidbit for West Charlotte, I guess it's their pride. They held Mallard Creek to 42, and I believe that's the fewest out of all the IMEC teams so far.
It really is. So, you look for the silver lining as we've talked. Right now, conference play, Mallard Creek is the cream of the crop, so to speak, and really haven't had a big push. As they get to the playoffs, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for them. But good win, again, 42-0, Mallard Creek. They moved to 9-0 on the season, 6-0 in conference. West Charlotte falls to 3-7, and a must-win situation coming into this next week to be playoff eligible, 2-4 in the conference. Next game, Mooresville, North Meck.
It was, we talked about it. It's been a rough season for North Meck. Mooresville's on a bit of a roll right now, so a bit of a mismatch. Mooresville played well. Started a little slow, but their offense really started clicking. Towards the end of the first quarter, just started going on a roll. Another great defensive performance. They won 30-8. That one touchdown was given up by the reserves, but just another great performance by Mooresville. And they're rolling into the playoffs right now, too, going into another big game.
Well, and you talked about Mallard Creek, only scoring 42. They did start subbing in the second quarter, so you got to give them a little credit there, just like Mooresville. But Mooresville moves to 8-2 on the season, 5-1 in the IMEC. North Meck drops to 1-9 on the season. 0-6 for the conference. But as we've talked, Coach Bradley's got that group in a rebuilding process. Due to realignment and growth, North Meck has been depleted. So look for good things in a few years from that North Meck program. The first big shocker of the night, Lake Norman at Huff.
That's another good rivalry, I think, within this conference. For some reason, the Mooresville teams and Huff, there's a little bit of bad blood in between them. And going into this game, you think Huff's got the advantage. They got a little more skill players there, a little more speed, and Lake Norman's not having their best year. But as we've said, Friday night, anything can happen. And Lake Norman came out and got the job done.
Well, and Lake Norman's proven over the years that, they step up for a rivalry game. This Friday night's going to be no different when they come in here to Mooresville. Mooresville better have their A game or Lake Norman to take care of them too. So, it's a lot of fun. Huff, Lake Norman, that rivalry is a big deal. Lake Norman pulled it off 20-9. Lake Norman moves to 4-6 on the season, playoff eligible. 3-3 in the conference. Huff falls to 4-6 or 4-5 on the season. No, 4-6. Excuse me, 4-6 on the season, 3-3 in conference. So again, both teams playoff eligible, but they've got to have some things happen the right way. And you and Dale will talk about that as you start setting it up. And finally, the big game, kind of the IMEC, was Vance at Hopewell.
Yeah, that was a big game for playoff purposes, and seeding in the conference. Vance won 3 in a row, I believe, at that point. And they're just, looking at their team as the conferences started, or conference play started, they weren't favorite to even finish, I'd say, in the top 4 of the conference. But they have come out each week, gotten better, gotten wins, and they're rolling right now. And there was a very good game between them and Hopewell, and Vance ended up pulling out in overtime.
Yeah, 31-25, the final score there. Vance, they've got athletes. They always do. The coaching changed at the beginning of the season. that kind of upset the apple cart. They didn't get off to a good start, had lost a few athletes, but they're starting to gel, and you know that they've got a good coaching staff. They've always been able to pull things together, and that staff didn't change, just the head coach doesn't work at the school now. He, just due to some qualification issues. But now that they've kind of regrouped, got those kids moving, Vance is really, they're somebody that could be reckoned with, and they've put themselves in a situation now that if they win Friday night, they end up the number 3 seed in the conference. So, I mean, they started out slow, but they also played some very big teams to start off the season.
Yeah, they sure did. Their non-conference schedule was absolutely brutal. And I think the big thing that's helped them is that they still have the former head coach on the sidelines. So, him being gone, obviously affected them early, but him staying on the sidelines I think has really helped them out. And they're just really starting to gel. And, any team that plays them should not take them lightly because obviously they're on a little roll, and momentum can take a team as far as they want it to go.
Well, and, the Cougars always, speed kills, as they say, and they've always got speed. And, powerful back on Lorenz Bryant, he's really, been the leader on that ball club this year offensively and really has had some big games the last few weeks.
Yeah, sure has. And I tell you, if that kid wasn't playing both ways, playing linebacker as well, you can only imagine what he could do, if he wasn't going to, winded and stuff, because he's great at both positions.
Well, and that's going to be their challenge as they get into playoffs. I mean, it's hard to play 4A football, much less 4AA football with 35 guys on a football team. So, wish the Cougars luck. Got a big game again this weekend. Like I said, they put themselves in position, and we'll talk about more. But that kind of wrapped up the IMEC Conference play for last week. We're here at Mooresville High School. When we come back, Dale Ross will join Harry to talk about conference playoff predictions right here on the My Connection pregame show.
The Health Reach Community Clinic invites you to the Health Reach Heroes Luncheon on Tuesday, November 1st at 11:45 at the Charles Mack Citizen Center in Mooresville. Enjoy a delicious catered lunch and learn how the Health Reach Community Clinic is impacting our area's health. Davidson College men's basketball coach Bob McKillop is the featured speaker for the event. For more information, visit the website healthreachheroes.org.
Hi folks, Harry Nostrum here with Carolina Varsity on the ImeckSports pregame show. Joined here by my good friend Dale Ross, founder of Carolina Varsity. Dale, appreciate you joining us this week, bud.
Good to be here.
All right, well, first...
Thank you, Joe.
First, we're going to break down this week's IMEC conference play. And there's a couple big games as far as playoffs go. So the first game, we got 4-6 Vance. They're 3-3 in conference. They're going to be taking on West Charlotte. 3-7 overall, 2-4 conference. As we know, this game has playoff bearing, so it's going to be a big game. And obviously, between these two squads, I believe there's a little bit of a rivalry there. So it should be a good game. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, obviously, one of the things I always say is you got to take care of business. And Vance is in a position to take care of business. Win Friday night, there's no questions. Playoffs theirs. They're number 3 seed. West Charlotte, on the other hand, they're in a playoff situation come Friday night. They have to win to smell the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And if they win, then the IMEC's in a mess. So you're going to have a lot of 3-win teams, mm-hmm. and somebody will be sitting up late Friday night drawing straws to see who's in and who's out.
That's right.
So take care of business, you're in.
All right, now you think Vance has got the upper hand in this one? I mean, I would lean to them just based on the fact they have a little bit of momentum coming into this game, and they've proven a little bit. But as you just said, you got to take care of business. So.
Well, I'm with you on that. I think that Vance is on a roll. I think their early season struggles have a lot to do with who they played. They did lose a number of key players, and of course they had the coaching situation change. But I don't think that was as big an impact as maybe losing some players and learning where to fit players in. They are thin on numbers. They were thin on numbers last year. But it's a good coaching staff. They have lots of speed. They have lots of athletes. The same things we normally say about West Charlotte. But West Charlotte's in a bit tougher situation. They have experienced a number of coaching changes over the last few years, which has created a lot of instability in the seniors down to the freshmen. So what has happened years ago is playing into West Charlotte's current situation. I give Vance the upper hand, but West Charlotte certainly could give a fight.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's going to be a good game. Either way, it should be an exciting game. So looking forward to hearing the results of that. Next game, we got Huff 4-6, and as we've talked about before in the past, they get the joy of Mallard Creek this week, and it hasn't worked out very well for most of the IMEC teams this year. So, what are you thinking, Dale?
Well, I would like to say you take care of business. You get yourself in the playoffs. Huff's in that situation. However, they face a mighty tall task in playing Mallard Creek. I just think Mallard Creek's got too many guns, too fast, too many skilled athletes, too many big guys that can move. I don't see this win. I don't see a win for Huff getting them into the playoffs. They're going to have to play the I won 4 games and I'm in.
Yeah. And Mallard Creek is just, on a roll. They really shouldn't have a problem with any of the conference teams, and they haven't. So I would imagine you're going to see a lot of bit of the reserves in this game, gearing up for the playoffs. Yeah, the starters are going to get their fair share. It is senior night, so the seniors are going to get to play. But I think after, they get their comfortable lead, you're going to see a lot of the reserves. And this game really, unless a Huff win would change things, but, in all seriousness, Huff really doesn't have a great shot at winning this game. So really, playoff-wise, this has no bearing on the 4A playoffs.
That's true. Now, I wouldn't expect to see subs before the second half. Usually, we're 1 week away from playoffs now. Mm-hmm. And you want players to know how it is to come out of the locker room in the second half and play football because they may have to do that in the first round. So don't look for, even if they get up big, don't look for subs too early. But do look for the benches to be cleared, I think, in sometime in the third quarter.
That's a very good point, Dale. Very good. Next game, we got 1-9 North Meck taking on 3-6 Hopewell. North Meck 0-6 in conference. Hopewell 2-4 in conference. Not a good year for North Meck, unfortunately, and Hopewell, they're trying to get their playoff seeding issues squared out. So, how do you feel about this one?
Well, Hopewell needs this win to give them their 4 wins and put them into that position of being into the playoffs. A Hopewell win and a West Charlotte win Friday night, and all of a sudden now Hopewell's in that mix for that number 3 spot. So you can see a team that is clinging to playoff hopes, actually getting a number 3 seed and maybe going in at something like a number 10 in the overall seeding of the playoffs. So it is an important game for Hopewell. For North Meck, it's a game of pride. North Meck being an old school and Hopewell being one of the first schools that caused a major split of North. There is some rivalry there too. So there are reasons for North Meck to get up for this game, but I kind of see a Hopewell win here.
Yeah, I would lean that way too. Hopewell, as the season's gone on, they had the big win against Providence in their first game. They went through some struggles there, but I think as they've gone into conference play and the season's gone on for them, they've started to find their identity, and I feel like, they're going to keep a little bit of momentum going into the playoff, and a big win here against North Meck, I think, gives them a little bit heading into the playoffs.
Great.
All right, then we have the MI Connection Game of the Week here at Mooresville High School. They're going to be taking on their big rival, Lake Norman Wildcats. Mooresville 8-2 right now on the season. They've got 1 loss against Mallard Creek in the conference, and Lake Norman, you're 4-6 and 3-3 in conference. So, big game for Lake Norman. They're going to be looking for a playoff seeding wise, and big rivalry. Anything can happen. What do you think about this game, Dale?
Well, it's another one of those games. Take care of business, and you're in the playoffs, no question. Obviously, Mooresville's already taken care of business, so they're in the playoffs and they're solid at number 2. Lake Norman is looking to get into the playoffs, and a win here would put them in securely into the playoffs, or would put them into a tie with Vance. And it's a very important game for Lake Norman. Big rivalry game. However, I see the Blue Devils taking this game. I don't expect it to be extremely close unless the whole rival thing comes up, and you have to watch that. You've got a rival, you got a fairly competitive team. Lake Norman's had a decent little role here in playoffs. We thought preseason, or we thought in the regular season, Lake Norman might be kind of a softie. But they've kind of stepped it up in conference play, which is where you really need to win your ball games. So Lake Norman's not a team that Mooresville can sleep on. But Mooresville comes out, takes care of business. I see them taking this win.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Lake Norman, with their big wins over Huff and West Charlotte, has given them a new sense of confidence, I believe. And, confidence and momentum are big things for any team. But I tell you what, after seeing Mooresville last week, they went to normally they're a run-first team, and they still ran the ball efficiently. I mean, D. Tomlin had 93 yards with a touchdown last week, but they developed a pass game that hasn't been seen before by this Blue Devil squad. I mean, Deontay Black, 10 of 11 passing for 93 yards, touchdown, and then receiver Sean Lesser got on the action, threw for, I believe, another 50 yards. So, I mean, if they can institute those wrinkles in that game, and I've talked to Coach Capps, he's looking to keep those wrinkles going, it could be a big win for Mooresville, but like you just said, any rivalry, anything can happen, really. So.
Exactly. And the interesting thing about each of the games you just went down, all games have playoff implications. So that's maybe not unique, but for the conference, that's pretty good that you have every game having some kind of impact on conference, on playoffs, whereas you could step to some other conferences and you got games Friday night that mean nothing. So
sure, yeah.
For the IMEC, that's pretty good to have so many teams in playoff contention.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people, I think, paying attention to the games this week if they're looking to find answers for the playoff seedings. So, well, we're going to go to CarolinaVarsity.com's projections now, and you've been putting these together now, and you put some together the past 2 weeks for 4AA, 4A, and we'll start with the 4AA playoffs. Now, you've got Lake Norman at number 15 playing at number 6 Olympic, and then you've got number 14 Hopewell playing at number 8 Ardrey-Kell, and that's in the 4AA West Pod. How do you feel about those matchups for both those teams?
Personally, I think that's probably a tough matchup for both of the IMEC schools. But to be in the playoffs, they did just squeak in. It's a Friday night; anything can happen. Team overlooks their opponent, thinks these two schools look to their meeting the next week. You got to play your games. That's just the bottom line. You have to play your games, and no matter who you play, who you're seeded against, you got to play that game and win it in advance. Forget about who's in front of you. So that could be interesting matchups.
Well, in the 4AA Midwest, you've got Mallard Creek, the number 1 seed, hosting number 13 West Forsyth in your projection, and then you've got number 10 Vance at number 2 Page. Couple, pretty much the best 2 teams in 4AA as projected right now. Obviously, if Scotland gets pushed to 4AA, they're going to be in that mix as well. So, as you were talking about, Vance, they're number 10 right now playing number 2 Page. But if West Charlotte's able to beat Vance, that's just going to throw a kink into everything.
Well, that could be a West Charlotte playing Page. And, of course, we have to remember these seedings are all based on some predicted outcomes of games that I had to sit down and say, this team will beat this team. Some of the matchups were pretty easy to pick. Some were kind of difficult throughout the whole state. And then we have the situation of ADM information, which we do not have currently, and that these projections are based on last year's ADM numbers. As you'll see here in a moment, one particular school is projecting to be up in this 4A bracket, which we would have to add another game for them. But I might challenge just a little bit as to whether Page is the number 2 team in the state. I got a feeling those Bulldogs over in Matthews have got a little bit of something to say about that. And that 4AA Midwest pod is just stacked with good teams with Independence in there as well. So
yeah, a lot of Metro teams in there that are just going to be looking to make a nice run. And I guess the good news for them is that someone's going to come out of that pod without having to face Mallard Creek until possibly the state semifinals or the quarterfinals, because Mallard Creek, in your prediction, is in the Midwest pod.
That's correct.
So,
and they'll open up with West Forsyth, which I don't see Mallard Creek hitting a challenge until they hit one of the Metro area teams, and they're on a roll right now. So
they sure are. And then we're going to jump to 4 single A, the small schools. In the West Pod, you've got number 13 Alexander Central and number 4 Mooresville, which, as we were talking about during the break, used to be a rivalry game that they went away with this year. Alexander Central not in the schedule. So if it plays out that way, that could be a fun matchup to watch.
That could be a fun game, and as long as I've been around high school football, which is since Dirt was here, that's been a big game. That's one of the big rival games. Statesville used to be another huge rival game.
Yep.
But the Alexander Central game, having them come to Mooresville, I'm sure that'll be a fun game to watch. It could be a challenge for Mooresville just simply because of that. I do think Mooresville's the better team, and Mooresville should advance. But Alexander Central could make it entertaining.
Sure. Now, the big thing for that, I'm going to look to see how Mooresville handles business this week against Lake Norman. If they get a big win on their hands, I think momentum. If they get a huge, big overpowering win against Lake Norman, that could carry them a long ways into that first game and possibly into the second round. So we'll see how that plans out. And as you were just talking about, the next school we got here, we're not even sure if they're even going to be in 4 single A now. If they get lucky, maybe they won't be. They may jump up to big 4A. But you've got 16 Huff taking on number 1 Porter Ridge. That's a tough matchup.
That's a tough matchup. Of course, the question becomes one of, do you want Porter Ridge or do you want Mallard Creek? Because you get thrown up into the 4AA, now you're facing the Mallard Creeks of the world. You get past Porter Ridge, it might not be such a tall task. But Porter Ridge is a tall task. Very good team. One of the things that I noticed out of them is they're extremely disciplined, which is my kind of football, being disciplined, few mistakes, players making the right decisions, their technique is good. They're a good, solid football team, and they got some athletes to go with it and a little bit of speed. Now, they got a tough game this Friday night against in-town rival Sun Valley. Tough game because it is a rival game. I expect Porter Ridge to come out of that game with a win, but they could come out a little nicked up because Sun Valley will not go down without a fight. So. Yeah,
and I think, execution and discipline, as you just said, are going to be keys in all these teams' playoff success. But you're talking about Porter Ridge exceptionally well at executing, and they are disciplined. So right now, I have to believe, and I think you'll concur with this, they have to be the favorite out of the 4A West to make it to the championship game.
I agree. I think Porter Ridge will be playing the final Saturday for a state championship. But anything can happen. And just as I think Mallard Creek will be playing the final Saturday for a state championship. But then again, anything can happen.
Yeah, if those top seeds lose, before they're supposed to, the whole side of the bracket just opens right up.
Yep.
So, well, we got the playoff projections there for you folks. When we come back, we'll bring you the pregame for the ImeckSports and MI Connection Game of the Week here at Mooresville High School between Mooresville and the Lake Norman Wildcats. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the ImeckSports.com pregame show. Harry, you and Dale had a lot of great things to say, a lot of fun. Like Dale said, playoff projections are fun. Really, Friday night could mess all of them up. I know it's a lot of work. Everything that Dale did put into that into work. We appreciate that and appreciate him coming out and really sharing that with us. And it's fun to speculate where we're going to be and what we're going to do. And really, like you guys were talking about, Alexander Central coming to town, that'll be a lot of fun for the Blue Devil faithful. So could be a lot of fun for the IMEC. 6 teams. That's the other thing that kind of stuck out that you guys didn't really hit on. But 6 out of our 8 teams, even though it's a down year for the IMEC football conference, still 6 of the 8 teams make the first round of the playoffs.
Well, and I think that just shows that, as far as 4A West goes, there's just not a whole lot of great teams to be talked about that are going to make the playoffs. So that's awesome for the conference. 6 out of 8's amazing. If that's how it works out, that would be awesome. Unfortunately, some of those guys may run into the buzzsaw in their first-round games, but, we've talked about it before. Anything can happen on a Friday night. Teams come out motivated, pumped up. Anything can happen.
Well, speaking of anything that could happen, the game on the My Connection Game of the Week, Lake Norman coming to Mooresville, that's an anything can happen kind of ball.
Yeah, you know what? Lake Norman they've surprised, I believe, with the West Charlotte win and the Huff win, because I think if you look at those 2 teams on paper, or those 2 games on paper, I think Lake Norman's probably losing both of those games, I would imagine. But they come out and took care of business against West Charlotte after having a poor performance against Vance, and then they take advantage of a Huff team that just got their tails hit by Mooresville. So they've played what they're supposed to, they've done what they're supposed to win, and they're coming into this game with a lot of motivation, a lot of momentum, and I honestly believe that this game is not a lock for Mooresville. While they are favored, like I've said before, momentum could carry a team as far as they want it to.
Well, and the thing is when Lake Norman crosses that bridge, comes over 77, something happens to the mentality of that ball club. And the same thing's vice versa. Anytime the Mooresville Blue Devils travel down I-150, cross the bridge, over to the other side of 77, the mentality changes. The kids get a little more fired up. There's a little bit more adrenaline. I've seen it too many times in every sport. I joke a lot of times that the chess club could go play each other and you could end up with a fist fight. I mean, it's just kind of the way it goes. But at the same time, these kids play tournament ball, they play travel ball, they play rec ball, they play with each other most of the time. But when they put on their respective blues, all bets are off.
Well, and you know what? This is just a game where these kids just like to hit each other too. I mean, the football games between these two have always been, hard-hitting games. I mean, you go back to the 6 or 7 overtime game a little while back. There's history, there's bad blood, and it's the makings for a great rivalry. And the fact that the school's only 8 miles away. I mean, these kids know each other, they dislike each other on a football field, and both teams are going to have so much motivation. As we're starting to learn here on CarolinaVarsity.com, there's going to be a little bit of trash talking going on. And I think between the fan bases, you look at it that way too. It's just it's a love-hate type thing. You love to hate them.
Well, I tell you what. Speaking of the forums on CarolinaVarsity.com, I don't know. You're going to have to go a long way to get to the 8 pages of thread conversation that you had against Huff with Mooresville. So
5,000 plus views for the Huff Mooresville thread. In a week. That's just ridiculous. And over 100 responses and posts on the thread. And that's just a testament to the rivalry there. And I hate to call Lake Norman out, but where are they? They got to get up here and get on these people. They got to. Well, if they want to live up to the rivalry hype, they better come on out.
I think they will. I think you'll see them. You'll have the opportunity to watch the game right here on My Connection. This game going to be a lot of fun. Like you guys talked about, Lake Norman, they're playoff eligible right now, but a win over Mooresville, and all of a sudden they become a lock to get in the playoffs and really, like you said, have that momentum at that point that they could be scary in the first round for somebody that they'll still be a lower seed, but I wouldn't want to be, if they beat Mooresville, I wouldn't want to be the team they play in the first round.
Yeah, that's gonna raise some eyebrows around the area. If a Lake Norman team that started the season, as Dale said, kind of being a softie, no one really took for a good team. If they come out and beat a very good Mooresville team, there's going to be teams wondering, are they for real? But it'll be interesting to see.
Well, and it's funny. You look back in years past, because of them being an Iredell Statesville school district school, they have to play the county schools as their non-conference. And most years they start out, and especially their big playoff runs, they've been, they've beat Statesville, they built North, they beat West, and people go, South Iredell, they beat a 2A, a 3A, and a 3A. So they're really not quality wins. Well, this year they lost to all those guys, and now they come into conference and play hard. Granted, South Iredell is probably one of the better programs, in the area. And when you look at realignment coming up, they will probably become a 3A school with when they reassess ADMs and those kind of things. But I like the Wildcats. I don't think they have it this week, as long as Mooresville, as Dale said, takes care of business.
Yeah.
But it should be a lot of fun. Great game to end up the My Connection Game of the Week series for the 2011 football season. Been a lot of fun here on the ImeckSports.com pregame show. Appreciate you sitting in. We'll be back next week, just on the internet for a little while, doing the projections for the playoffs and talking through that. And then come basketball season, look for us back on My Connection as well. So for Harry, I'm Joe Cullen. Stay tuned. Gary Trexler and I will be here at Blue Devil Stadium Friday night to set the game up on location.